Have you ever felt like something is always missing? Even when you achieve what you wanted, the relationship, the recognition, the stability, something inside you still feels empty, as if no matter how much you move forward, the feeling of wholeness never really arrives. We live believing that the next achievement will bring peace, that when we finally get what we want, the discomfort will disappear. But the truth is, this discomfort doesn't come from the lack of what we want. It comes from the weight of the expectations we place on what something external can give us. Carl Jung said that what we don't face within ourselves, we end up projecting outward. And maybe, right now, you're projecting your salvation onto something or someone. The human mind has been conditioned to live in pursuit. Dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter, isn't released when you achieve something, but while you're chasing it. That's why, right after reaching a goal, the mind is already aiming for the next one. And so, it's never enough becomes a way of life. But what if the problem isn't what's missing? What if the real block is in what you still refuse to let go of? There's a kind of silence that's unsettling. Not the silence around you, but the one that pulses inside when everything slows down. It's in this inner space that emptiness shows up, and with it, restlessness, discomfort, and the urgency to fill it with anything that distracts. But what is this emptiness, after all? It's not the absence of something external. It's the reflection of an inner disconnection, a split between who you are and who you believe you need to be. This space we call lack is not a flaw, but a calling, a reminder that there are parts of you waiting to be heard. James Hillman said that the soul doesn't only express itself through our talents, but also through our pain. Emptiness, in this sense, is a language. It's the soul's way of saying that something essential has been forgotten. The problem is, we've learned to treat emptiness like an enemy. From a young age, we're taught to fill every second with stimulation. Social media, shopping, food, relationships. But none of these distractions reach what's truly hurting. Absence hurts because it breaks the ego's compulsive rhythm. It forces you to face yourself. And for many, that's the hardest part. Because in that meeting with your own silence, there are no masks, no distractions, no control. Just you. That's why emptiness is so feared. Not because it hurts, but because it reveals. And maybe, behind that feeling of lack, there's something much deeper waiting to emerge. Something that can only be accessed when you stop running and start listening. What might this emptiness be trying to show you? Attachment is different from love. Feels intense, it seems real, but it comes from fear, not connection. Attachment is the attempt to hold on to something the soul still doesn't trust it can live without. And the more you cling to it, the more entangled you become. Have you ever noticed how some things only start to flow when you stop forcing them? That happens because attachment creates tension, an energetic rigidity that closes off your ability to receive. The mind, taken over by the fear of losing, begins to control, to suffocate, to repeat. And in that effort, it paralyzes the natural flow of life. According to Eckhart Tolle, attachment is identification with form. When you believe you need that situation, that person, that outcome, you lose touch with yourself. You start living off balance. And living off balance means living in survival mode. The problem isn't wanting. It's believing that you can only be whole if you get what you want. When the brain is emotionally tied to a fixed idea, it creates neural pathways that reinforce that pattern. It's like the brain is saying, if this doesn't happen, I won't be safe. And so, life becomes a constant struggle to protect what was never guaranteed. But the more you try to stay in control, the less control you actually have. Because attachment doesn't protect. It imprisons. A closed hand can't receive anything new. Only by opening, by letting go, can the new have space to come in. And maybe, what life is waiting to give you can only arrive once you stop demanding and start trusting. Letting go is not giving up. is transforming the way you relate to what you desire, the stepping out of tension and into trust. It's the moment when you say to yourself, I surrender to what is greater than my control. But why is it so hard to let go? Because the ego wants guarantees. It wants certainty that if it loosens its grip, it won't lose everything. But letting go is not about losing. It's about allowing life to flow without the constant interference of an alert mind. It's stepping out of rigidity and making space for the intelligence of the unseen. Michael A. Singer teaches that true awakening happens when you stop resisting the flow of existence. He says, "You are not your thoughts. You are the space through which thoughts pass. And in that space you can choose not to hold on. You can simply let them pass. In nature, everything flows because nothing holds on. The river doesn't cling to its banks. The leaves don't resist the wind. And still, everything happens perfectly. What humans call control is often just fear disguised as strategy. Letting go, on the other hand, is the trust that there is a more subtle order guiding each step, even when you don't understand it. In the moment you let go, something shifts. The energy rearranges. Tensions dissolve. Because letting go is not the end of desire. It's the beginning of permission. And it's when you stop forcing that reality starts to cooperate. Surrendering is not just a symbolic act. It's a physiological process. The body needs to feel safe in order to let go. And that starts long before the mind becomes aware of it. The human nervous system operates largely on instinct. When you live under stress, anxiety, or too much expectation, the body interprets it as a threat. It activates survival mode, the sympathetic nervous system, preparing you to fight, flee, or freeze. In this state, your perception narrows. You stop seeing possibilities. Even the opportunities that appear seem dangerous or out of reach. To let go, you need to teach the body how to trust. And that only happens when you activate the parasympathetic system, which regulates relaxation, openness, and healing. Joe Dispenza explains that when the brain and heart enter coherence, meaning they vibrate in harmony, the electromagnetic field around the body expands. This isn't just an energetic idea. It's measurable, and it has real effects on how you think, feel, and create. Surrender, in this context, is a practice that begins in the body. Breathing deeply, slowing down, meditating, moving with awareness. All of this sends a message to your nervous system. It's okay. You don't need to be in control anymore. And interestingly, it's in this deep state of calm that you become more magnetic, because you're no longer reacting out of fear, but creating with presence. When the body learns to trust, the mind stops resisting. Not every desire is authentic. Many are born from wounds. They are echoes of unresolved experiences, shaped by family patterns, silent traumas, and the constant cultural pressure to be who you're supposed to be. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself if that desire is truly yours? Sometimes you think you want a specific relationship, but what you really want is to feel worthy of love. Or you believe you want professional success, when deep down what you're seeking is approval. The issue isn't what you're chasing, but what you're trying to heal behind it. Gabor Mate points out that many of our impulses come from an unconscious attempt to avoid pain. Because of this, we end up identifying with desires that don't come from our essence, but from our emptiness. These desires, when left unquestioned, become compulsions, and even if they're fulfilled, they never satisfy, because they were built on unstable ground. Letting go, in this case, is not about giving up what's true. It's about releasing what was imposed. It's taking a step back and asking honestly, what do I truly want? Not what I was told to want, not what others expect, but what my soul recognizes as real. This kind of desire doesn't create anxiety. It doesn't need validation. And you can feel, with clarity and lightness, that following this path isn't a race, but a return. When you let go of what was programmed, You create space for the soul's true desire to finally be heard. There is a place where desire fades, not because it has been completely fulfilled, but because it no longer has the power to control you. That place is called presence. In presence, you're not waiting for something to start living. You're not bargaining with the future or replaying pieces of the past. You are where everything happens, in the now. Alan Watts said that the secret of life isn't in achieving something, but in being fully awake to what already is. That's why so many spiritual traditions point to the present moment as the gateway to the sacred. The mind wants to jump ahead, to predict, to project. But the soul can only be heard in the silence of the present. And it's in that state, when you're no longer trying to change anything, escape anything, or hold on to anything, that enough reveals itself as a vibration of wholeness that doesn't depend on external circumstances. Presence doesn't demand. It welcomes. It observes. It recognizes. And by recognizing what is, you begin to see that everything you were searching for out there, peace, love, clarity, direction, was quietly pulsing within you all along. What changes is your perspective. What transforms is the way you choose to be. And the more you anchor yourself in presence, the more life responds with precision. Not through effort, but through resonance. Because the now has always been enough. You just hadn't fully arrived yet. There comes a point when effort dissolves, where control loses its grip, and what remains is something simpler, purer, more real. When you let go, the energy that was once stuck in resistance starts to flow. What seemed stagnant begins to move, and what you thought you needed reveals itself as unnecessary. Letting go requires presence, awareness, and the courage to trust in what you can't see. And it's in this surrender that the greatest transformations take place. Relationships that once felt like a struggle begin to align naturally, or they fade away gently. Plans that were rigid open up in new directions. Ideas you were trying to force now flow with clarity. Because life, when it's not being pressured, reveals its own wisdom. You begin to realize that nothing and no one was made to complete you. That the other person is not a source of meaning, but a mirror. That success is not the goal, but the reflection of your inner state. That true movement begins when you stop running. And in that pause, you understand. You understand that you no longer need to beg for scraps of attention, approval, or control. That real abundance begins the moment you choose to be whole, even if nothing on the outside has changed. Because when you let go, what isn't yours drifts away, and what is stays, drawn by vibrational alignment. This is the end of the cycle of lack. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Like the video so it can reach more people. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and support us. If this message touched something inside you, maybe it's time to let go and allow life to surprise you.